Number 1.
Appropriation 2014-15 Estimates Bill, interrupted debate on second reading and the proposed amendment thereto.
Honourable Judith Collins.
Oh, Mr Speaker, what a fantastic budget we've had. What a fantastic budget. And I loved being here last Thursday to be here for the budget, but Mr Robertson missed me so much. He was dreaming about me, but it's all right, I was here. Now, he said it was a nightmare because he's worried that I'll come for him one day. Having said that, it might just happen. Mr Speaker, when this government was elected in 2008, we picked up a mess that Labor left us, Labor and their leftist friends. They left us a 50% increase in government spending in their last 5 years, high interest rates nearing 11%. 11%, Mr Ross, 11%, a cost of living over 5%, inflation of 5%, an export sector going backwards, and a country in recession for the last 4 years. I should also note a country where crime was getting out of control. We had about 70 murders in 1 year, as opposed to the usual 45. It was a country where people did not respect the government and were desperate to get rid of them, and they did, and they gave us the honour of being able to be their government. And this budget is the budget that brought us back into surplus, a country where we inherited a recession, a recession which we had been in place for a whole year before we came into government, a recession that had been in place for a year before the rest of the developed world went into recession, a recession where New Zealand led the world into recession under a Labor government. That's right. A Labor government. The only thing I'd say is, thank goodness it wasn't the Greens Labor government of Tasmania, because they would have been in recession 5 years before everyone else. We inherited a decade of deficits. A decade of deficits which we were told, all the forecasts said, this country would have deficits for 10 years. Actually, this year we're out of recession. We're out of deficit. We've also been able to produce a lot more than that, because balancing a budget's not just about saving money or spending money, Mrs King. A balanced budget means actually producing better for our New Zealanders. In my own justice portfolio, I have to say, working with the justice sector ministers, Chester Burrows and Tolley, and the Attorney-General, we have had the most wonderful time working together to make sure we bring the crime rate down. The crime rate in New Zealand per 100,000 New Zealanders is now the lowest it's been in 35 years. That's 1978. Some of us can just remember 1978, unlike Miss Ardern, who was still a twinkle in her daddy's eye. In that time, what we've been able to do, with the work of the marvellous New Zealand Police, the Department of Corrections, the Ministry of Justice, the courts, what we've been able to do is bring that crime rate down and retain that. The last 4 years of a national-led government has led to a 20% cut in crime, a massive decrease, and I understand Mr Little doesn't like that, but I'm sorry, that's true. In addition, let's look at ACC. My colleague, the Honourable Nick Smith, inherited an utter mess from Mary Ann Street. What a useless Minister of ACC she was. She was only slightly better than the other useless minister, the Honourable Ruth Dyson. But having said that, we had to deal with levies, and in fact this year and for the last few years we've been able to drop the levy rates. So we are now in a position of being able to tell Kiwis that after a decade of Labor running down ACC, removing any confidence in the system, running it down, we've been able to retain it and to be able to say that actually ACC now is one of the most competitive services in the world, anything even remotely competent or confident to that. What we've been able to do is to be able to say that we can deliver sustained levy cuts, because there's no point delivering a cut one year and then putting it up the next year. Absolutely hopeless. And in this budget, we've also been able to say something for transport. Now, I want to deal with transport for this reason. This government is delivering $210 million for the Southern Corridor. And for those of you who are not intently interested in the Southern Corridor like I am, that is the Southern Motorway. So that's really from Hill Road in my electorate down through to Drury in my electorate. And I have to say, it is a marvellous thing. We will be widening that Southern Motorway. That will save people so much money in terms of time. It will save the environment. It will save so much in terms of productivity. And that will be one of the biggest differences for people in the southern region of Auckland, but also for those travelling from Hamilton, those who have to use that area. That is one of the biggest things that I am most proud of in this budget. Not quite as proud as I am of what the Honourable Tony Ryle has been able to produce in health, I have to say, particularly the free GP visits and free prescriptions for all children under 13. In my opinion, that is the standout result of this budget. It is a fantastic result for New Zealand families of all over the country, and I know in my electorate in Papakura, people are so excited about that. So thank you, Tony Ryle. What we've been able to do is to do much better than just spending money. Where we have been able to, we've been able to use the money more efficiently. We've been able to also ask professionals who are involved in these areas how they would spend their money. And they've come up with all sorts of ideas. If you look at the rheumatic fever work that Tony Ryle has done, that's the sort of thing where in my electorate, in many parts of my electorate are decile 1, 2 or 3 schools, not all, but many of them. That's one of the things that teachers say to me is making a huge difference for children. The fact that this government has put social workers in all of those low decile schools, that's the sort of thing I think that this government can be immensely proud of. And we haven't been able to do it just by ourselves. We'll work with our support parties of the Maori Party, United Future and ACT Party, and I would like to acknowledge the help that they have given us to be able to bring this about. Because unfortunately, when I look at some of what has happened over the last few years, I'd say, what is it that the opposition has in fact supported? Well, actually, not a lot. Did they in fact support any savings that this government could make to show that get the country back into surplus? Of any of the previous 5 budgets? Well, the answer is no, not one. Did Labour, for instance, support welfare reform that's seen so many New Zealanders get themselves back into work and get a sense and an actual independence? No, is the answer. Did Labour ever support tax changes to reduce tax rates paid by every single New Zealander across this country? The answer is no. Did Labour support 90-day probationary periods that were so good for small businesses to get people some confidence to get back into work, and for small businesses to have, or small business owners to have the confidence to give people a chance, to give people an opportunity? The answer is no. They didn't care. Did Labour support Resource Management Act reform so that people can build their houses faster and support the growth of the businesses? Well, the answer is no. Did Labour support housing accords so that we could have special housing areas? In my electorate, by the way, as well, 3 of them now in my electorate in Papakura. Well, the answer is no. Did Labour support the making of the Hobbit movies in New Zealand so that 5,000 jobs could be created here? No, that party are the Hobbit haters. And the only party even worse than that in their record of not supporting the government moves are the wilted and bitter Greens.
I call the Honourable Minister Tony Ryle.
Mr. Speaker, what a great budget.